96 billion. Even at Parliament, they have been giving us MPs are fairly paid. But every morning you are entitled to some sort of breakfast, including free lunch. You budget for the whole Parliament, and sometimes you'll have more MPs in the canteen than in the plenary. You don't have quorum to pass a matter, but if you check, because you will go and put your thumb and then you get a receipt to go and eat. So if you check how many MPs have eaten a day and how many MPs have attended plenary, there are more MPs in the canteen than those that are in the plenary. So you have I'll be very quick. Special meals and drinks 539 billion. Travel inland 1 trillion. Travel abroad 207 billion. Fuel for the vehicles of big people 515 billion. Donation, big people now want to donate 196 billion. You have no money for intern, about 23 billion.
28 billion.
28 billion. But there is money in the budget for donation, 196 billion. You have gas. So I have never seen this before. Gas, firewood, and charcoal, 17 billion. You have beddings and clothing, 176 billion. Official ceremonies and state functions, 29 billion. Maintenance of vehicles, you have 236 billion. Vehicles for new MPs, 166 billion. Buying vehicles, replacing the ones that have grown old, 232 billion. Furniture and fittings, and I want you to walk to Parliament, 84 billion. Because you have a new Parliament, I had furniture in my office, and they told me it's beginning of it, and they were taking away the furniture. Me, actually, I wanted the old furniture than the new one they were bringing. I said, no, me, I still want this one. So there is money for furniture, and even if the furniture is still okay, because there is money in the budget, you throw it in the corridor, and then they bring you have money for advertising and public relations. People like concentrating about Parliament, but the whole government, 187 billion. You have money for I spoke about classified expenditure, etc., etc. The total of what I am reading is about 8 trillion. Seminars, etc. And that's why I said I don't want to discuss the budget the government way. They will tell you agriculture, the ATMs, and you will actually think that there is money in look at the budget of industry in Uganda, the Ministry for Industry. It's less than even tourism. Because they will tell you we are now getting more money, which is a lie, from gold, about 6 billion, but that gold is trafficked through here. It's not our gold. And that's why Bank of Uganda recently said that the money Uganda gets from gold is just about $200 million US. But the total budget, I saw the president leading a list of exports. Gold. Which gold are you exporting? Because you have these small refineries, so people come in and wash and take to the international market. So that gold is mainly from Congo. That's why you keep going to Congo in and out. Then you have Ugandans. We are now told by the official government documents that Ugandans who are outside are bringing in 2.5 billion US, followed by tourism at about 1.6. But if you look at the investment in tourism, if you want to go by ministry sector by sector, it is usually less than 100 billion. Then they will tell you, no, everything else is enabling tourism. Then they will tell you roads, etc., etc. So this budget, I don't want to go back to what I said. I told you, and I wanted to summarize the budget for anyone caring to listen. I am not a Professor Barunywa, who is an economist. Me, I am an ordinary person who did journalism. 33 trillion debt servicing, 22 trillion salaries and staff expenses. That's about 70% of the budget. What remains is what you are going to be dividing in the sectors But I've told you, if you look at works, already you have contractors that have stopped work because you have not paid them. They have been submitting bills and you're not paying. So, and it's not by accident that I said this is going to be a paid killer, because you are now talking about 84 trillion, thinking that that money is going to be realized and it's going to be released. Because this government sometimes releases air. And you see it in the newspapers that the minister has now released the money for the second quarter. And that's why when you're looking at areas, they had hit 12 trillion. Because they make government departments incur and contract suppliers, and then they don't pay them. Because the last financial year, the budget we passed must have been about 72 trillion.
72. Yeah.
Then you added another 8 trillion in supplementary, coming to about 80. But the money realized was less than 70. So every financial year, that huge figure that you see, the actual money realized is always less by either 14 trillion, 12 trillion, 11 trillion. It is only Parliament, State House, and a few departments where the release will be 100%. But agriculture, they will tell you have 1.1 trillion, and then they're going to release 700 billion, including universities and everything else. So the big budget, and that's what I told these Kabyangas, their cabinet, they want to create an impression that the economy is growing, we are okay. Interestingly, if you give them an opportunity, everybody is going to be complaining, including NRM people. One day I asked them, you guys, maybe your opposition, we didn't, you know. Because the NRM was complaining more than us. My road is not done, my this is not done. I said, you are in government, you're supposed to say everything is done. So the budget, until it is structured, the president at one time said, I think it must have been 20 something, he said that a group of Sare, meaning his brother, had identified 7 trillion in the budget that needs to be reallocated. And what I have read is what he also listed. Seminars, welfare and entertainment, this, but that money was never restructured. It remained. I asked Musasizi, who by the way is a very good minister, and I was happy Musasizi was promoted because he's the one who was doing finance. I asked him, because, and he told me these are called the chart of accounts. So they will give you a ceiling that next financial year, if you are agriculture, you are going to spend 1 trillion, and they will give you the items to spend on. Travel, even if you don't want to travel, there is money for travel. They will give you money for welfare, entertainment, whether you want to be entertained or not. Because there are people like Kabyanga, I've never seen him happy. But in the budget, he has money for entertainment. So the items are there. It's like they are ordained it's like they are ordained from God that you have 1 trillion and you're going to spend on the following items.
You must put the number.
So you begin distributing the money you have been authorized to budget under the following items. So, and the president knows it. It's not that I am saying something, because this is his budget. It's prepared with his participation. So if you want to change and make the budget meaningful, restructure it, remove money that is wasted. Yeah, that was discussed in Parliament. And I said, I have been an MP for 15 years. Not even a single shilling of my salary has been taken away. Because this is money that goes to a person that exists. But if you begin staffing in the budget, money for meals, money for entertainment, money for donation, money for everything, and then you begin complaining that they are wasting it. So why did you put it there in the first place? So the president of Chisanja no sleep. I don't know why he doesn't want to sleep after 41 years in power. Because it appears to me, he says they have been sleeping for 41 years. So now they want to wake up. Corruption and so on. Let them first restructure. And Kenya, listen, and I told them in Parliament, Kenya said they want to move away, they are restructuring their human resource. And they said, we want more technical people than support staff. These Kabyangas, each minister has a driver, a secretary, bodyguards. So you employ one minister, and then he has 10, 20 support staff. The president himself employs at State House, about 1,600 people, 94 cooks. I asked NRM people, what does our president eat in a day? 94 cooks. And then around there, what? And duplicated in all government. So you look at the human resource, public service, 400,000, and ask them what are they doing, all of them, for us to have 22 trillion spent on staff, on their salaries, on entertaining them, on buying them meals. When the president came here in 1986, the first thing he did was to restructure the public service. Today, the public service, I think people, even if you don't know, because I looked at the list of staff which they provide together with the budget of State House. You have Butcherman, you have Catherine Kusasira, they are the one who are supposed to advise your president. So, the level of abuse, Kavian, you have abused people. You go and collect taxes, because next financial year you are targeting to collect about 30. You've increased money on fuel, which certainly will increase money on production. You have increased money for people who are moving money, using mobile money and so on and so forth. So collectively, you go and pick money from. They have even developed a new app, these people in the government. They said they now want everybody to be buying government bonds, including your grandmother in the village. They will be using mobile money to buy. So they want to go direct and pick money. Restructure the budget, spend money on the industries. So the ATMs that you are talking about as a slogan as PDM, because just interrogate each. How much money are they putting in ICT? And how much taxes have they imposed now on ICT related? How much taxes? Then you look at the money they are putting in tourism, because they want to develop the economy, tourism, agro-processing, and so on and so forth. How much money is in agriculture? I don't agree with Professor Varunyo that people cannot develop through agriculture. I don't entirely agree. I was in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia wanted to begin growing food. And they told them it's going to be very expensive if you do it in Saudi Arabia. They identified Uganda, Ethiopia, and I think Djibouti. They wanted to bring money here. But this government of Kabiang, their ministries, they spend a whole year discussing how to help Saudi Arabia grow food here. Then they went to, I think, Djibouti and I don't remember other countries. The Middle East, that desert consumes a lot of food, which they don't grow. That's where you have an advantage. You have 10.6 million youth who are aged 18 to 30. They are in Chireka discussing Arsenal and Man U every morning. If the industries haven't developed, why don't you utilize them in agriculture? They will go there and dig and process, because they can easily walk in. This country that receives the highest amount of rainfall in the world, irrigation is at 1%, and they are borrowing money. The Ministry of Finance recently did a study, because in every budget you will have external funded projects. Next financial year is about 11 trillion external funded projects. The recent study by Finance of 50 projects externally funded, 46 out of 50 had delayed or even stalled, including the Ginger Expressway. We borrowed the money from African Development Bank, about $300 million. That money has remained there for 5 years. Look, here, not very far from where we are sitting, parliamentary building, started in 2014. We thought the 10th parliament will sit in, it has gone. The 11th parliament has gone, they are still constructing. So by the NRM standards, even if you give them the money, these fellows, even if you give them the money and they had it, 50 projects for which we have borrowed the money, 46 either stalled or delayed. And they will give you information, very generous people. The level of naivety, you salute it. Because you should be hiding those things, but they will publish books to say for us the 56 projects for which we borrowed the money, 46 have stalled. It's only the stadium in Hoima and Entebbe Airport and a few others that have been completed on time. The rest they will start. Look at the road from here to Fort Portal going to Kabyanga's constituency in Kasese. They have been constructing that road for the last more than 10 years. By the time they complete it, it will need repair where they started. So you wonder, so even if, because the policies are good, someone who wants to change government, who wants to transform Uganda, you don't need to coin any policy. These policies are good. If you read every policy proposal, very good. I think there they have invested appropriately. But implementation is zero. The president has been sleeping for 41 years. Now he says everybody must wake up. But look at this, the human resources he has assembled to do this work. I keep saying, for me, anyone who cannot get a job in the private sector, and I'm in government, please don't knock at my door. Tell me, starting with the vice president, which company in Uganda will employ them, apart from NRM. That you have a company that wants to make profit, and they write new NRM cabinet list, starting with the Jessica Rupo, Her Excellency. Tell me a single company, even you here, UTV, the UBC, you'll never employ any of them. But they are in the government, each has a convoy, and the president says, no sleeping. They are already sleeping even before you make the proclamation.
Let me come to Julius. Julius, you and I have had conversations about the debt of the country, domestic arrears, undisbursed loans. When you couple all those things together, what is the cost for Uganda?
Yeah, the cost is really there, and I think you want to look at these numbers. And I think today morning I was trying, somebody also tickled me and said, I said, oh, we are going to have 14 trillion in interest payment, but we are going to collect 39 trillion in terms of revenue. So all that has already gone, because we will collect and we must pay. We must pay that. So right now I think we are saying that around 25–26% of the amount of money we collect from URA will directly have to go to payment of interest. And this is above the benchmark that we gave ourselves. And you might want to say, forget about this. What do we look at? The impact on an ordinary person is that as you try to struggle so much to meet your debt obligations, certain things will have to give away. For example, if medical interns, for example, that's what we're talking about, that you don't have money for medical interns because already your fiscal space in terms of meeting your debt obligation is so skewed to the extent that you can't cough out the 23 billion required for the interns. So you remain with two choices. Either you have to increase the tax rates, and I think Professor has demonstrated that it is going to be extremely very difficult to improve our tax to GDP ratio. So you have to look at the tax rates we have and say let's increase them, or you have to go and borrow more. So you are in a catch-21 situation about that. But I think for me is that we don't need to go that very far. One of the things we think about is we need to stop and start afresh in terms of our budgeting. And probably some of these excesses in the budget can get away. The other element where the debt really affects an ordinary person is that as you start to squeeze them to increase more taxes, then certain companies are likely to close. We are being told that for 4 out of 5 businesses in this country don't see their 50th birthday. And when you go back, you find out that the cost of credit in this country for a private sector is just to the roof. Because me and you, we are all in the same banking hall looking for the same amount of money from the government of Uganda, from the commercial banks. So the interest rates are so high because we are competing with the government. There is, I think it's Bank of Uganda, I think, came up with information that that actually we take more than 86% of the credit allocation in this country, 86% go to government. So they have almost completed all of it. So the little that remains, now the banks really are beginning to increase the interest payment. So that crowds out the private sector. So I don't care whether government really needs to look for concessional, non-concessional loans, but if these non-concessional loans are abroad, then at least you leave this market for your private sector-led economy that you talk about. So that becomes a very huge impact. But also something I think which Professor has mentioned and that has attracted my attention. When you begin to subsidize, because remember, what we are saying is we are borrowing very expensively, and we are lending out to these small groups at an affordable price. We are distorting the market. I don't know how we are going to do that, but really it is also distorting, because now people actually are not, you are waiting for free things, therefore, even if you don't have proper books of accounts, even if you don't have a very good plan, you are likely to be able to get this money. So innovations actually you kill it very quickly. So we need to find out how can we ensure that our economic empowerment programs really do not heavily distort the market. The argument that these banks actually don't want to give private sector funds because they are risky, I think for me it's because there is so little money and so many people are competing for this type of money that is within the saturation. The other part I think for me is on the domestic areas, is that we really keep on, if we don't pay the private sector for giving us goods and services, we are really killing the same cow that we are trying to milk to get revenue out of it. And we need really to be disciplined here, is that government needs to wake up and pay. So that one of the reasons why our budget actually has got these huge figures is that because the cost of supplying to government is actually very, very, very high. You find that a pen like this from the same supplier being supplied to different departments of government, it has got different prices, far above the market price. And the suppliers are telling you it is because it takes so long for government to pay. And that is costing us in terms of the budget allocations, but also even the private sector, because if it takes long to pay, the guy is likely to close his business because he cannot pay his employees, he cannot pay for the bills, he cannot pay for rent, because all the money is stuck in the government. So I think for me, really, I'm looking for the president really tomorrow to be able to speak to these things very directly.
Julius, before I leave you to come to Julia, the domestic areas, about 14 trillion there. And the government, this financial year, was giving out 1.4 trillion shillings. It has then dropped to 6.
They don't have money.
they don't want to pay because
the money is not there.
I mean, if really the government was an individual, by now it would be in prison. People would take it to prison. The argument has been that some of these areas are not verified, but the Auditor General verifies these areas every year. So whom do we want to follow? Or why can't we sit down and verify these areas? But I think the other big part of these areas are court settlements. And that's why I have come to say that really, if you're an accounting officer, you wake up and fire people at your own pleasure, and they sue you because you did it wrongly. And now you expect me, the taxpayer, to meet that cost. That should stop. This reckless behavior by some accounting officers, you have now here boards firing chief executive officers, district firing, and somebody takes you to court, the court awards them money, and they say, please charge the consolidated fund, as if I was there. So I think one of the things we also need to look at is, to what extent should we, the taxpayers, stand in to pay for some of these reckless decisions that cost us money? That should really stop.
Thank you. Julia, these ATMs, these areas that are there, how does a young person position themselves to leverage on their potential on all this that government is doing in this budget?
Interesting. At TMS, for me, I would start with the enabling factors. That's the human capital development. It's quite alarming. Ssemujju earlier gave an example of higher education. I would give the lower example of UPE, and then it takes me back to government really tracking outcomes. The other time we saw the Ministry of Education together with you both giving out the statistics of enrollment in especially the lower learning levels all through. And then you realize that even the little, because we have questioned the numbers, the percentages that are allocated to key sectors and all of that. But oftentimes I want to take my argument even beyond definitely our allocations towards human capital development are still below the required threshold. But even the minimum that we are spending, I don't think we're actually getting value for it. For example, at early learning, you would see I think we've had this conversation of focusing on the politics of it. And usually the politics calls for the popular feedback. For example, from education, you would want to report as government that this is a number of people that are enrolling through IUPE. But in actual sense, you're not reporting that even those that come to the UPE are not learning the learning outcomes, because if you read the World Bank report, it shows about 80% are victims of learning poverty, which means 8 in 10 children, every 8 in 10 children cannot read a basic sentence by the age of 10. So then it makes you question, with the minimum that we are allocating, is it a question of the underinvestment or also a follow-through on tracking the outcomes of that? The reason I keep giving education as an example is for the 10x economy the growth we are trying to achieve, we still need the skills, we still need the education of the human resources. Some of these industries are key, minerals, you're not going to employ you still need to train them to be in position to work in that specific sector. But beyond that, the enabling and everything, you realize that, for example, agro-industrialization, I am a strong believer that agriculture can, especially in Africa, agriculture is one of those hopeful factors if linked to the industry, and I think that's the whole agro-industrialization. As long as we are still treating it in solo and focusing on, for example, they'll tell you, they have told us 70% of the people are into agriculture, but for definitely a country that has over 78% young people, you definitely know they make up a big percentage of those that are into agriculture. But when you go down to the village level, you realize the agriculture we are talking about is the growing of maize, and then definitely from growing it, you sell it. But I think beyond government giving money, I think the biggest enabling factor would be government taking on projects. There is a full ecosystem. When we are having these conversations, we tend to focus on government. And I think the biggest problem government has been facing is oftentimes it's trying to work in silo. The reason I'm saying that, for example, when you look at the skilling hubs, I think the innovations was allocated over 1.1 trillion in the budget. When you look at the whole innovation sector, government is trying to skill. We have a lot of development partners skilling. So you have very many people skilling. By the end of the day, the statistics will show you that over 51% of young people are not in education, they're not in training, they're not in employment, they're nowhere. But you have very many actors doing the same thing. And you have in government spending where it would have, for example, collaborated with an actor, and then either they share the costs or have something implemented. So I think moving forward, government must also, from the young people's perspective, because young people do not have the same competitive advantage to compete for either the licensing in minerals, so you know for a fact that government has to take deliberate steps to establish quotas either along the value chain for young people to benefit. But beyond that, as I was talking about agriculture, we realized that we need to also move beyond just giving them the seedlings and giving them the 1 million to do something in agriculture, because for a fact it can only be beneficial if it's done on scale with a lot of innovation and the value addition that we keep talking about. But again, when you look at the the medium and small enterprises, the small enterprises that make out the biggest percentage of the economy. 90% of them are owned by young people. Yeah, and then we're talking about, we've been talking about how to take advantage of trade. Definitely, if they're going to participate in agriculture, value addition, they're doing whatever they're doing. But again, they lack the basic knowledge on export procedures, rules of origin, or even the standard of how to certify, how to make sure their products meet the market. There is just no knowledge, because you understand the economy we are talking about. We've been told majority of them are not land, majority of them are into agriculture. So then what then is government's role beyond just giving the money? Yeah, there is a lot of robust training that must be done, just not from government, because usually government's role is trying to identify the key actors it can work with to make sure most of these projects run through their lifespan. From the angle of young people, especially for like tourism, we have very many ambitious projects. They have been interrogated, from hosting, I think, the football games to partnering with key. There's a time I saw the incoming minister say, I think they are trying to get one of the Premier League teams, I don't know, to partner, which are really, those are very, very ambitious goals. But I think before we jump onto the ambitious goals and just spend money anyhow, the government can take advantage of. I think we saw what happens when Arsenal won Premier League. Uganda was marketed free of charge by its own citizens. So I think even the approaches we use within government should be citizen-centered. That's a way that more jobs will be created. But to look at it from the angle of young people, the education system has done us more harm than good. No matter how many times we shall scream for young people to start up, beyond the legislation actually, or the tax framework and the business regulation affecting them to start up something, because we also just do not want them to start up small things. We want to see them through the innovation and discover things that can actually bring in so much money in the economy. There must be a lot of support coming in from the government. So we are, on behalf of young people, we are not sorry that we keep shooting at government, because the education system we've gone through, I'll tell you for a fact that I'm a student. My bachelor's was in international business and trade. I know how profitable trade is. I actually taught trade for 2 years, but I've never ever thought of practicing in trade. And that's how bad it gets. But at the end of the day, we are expected to do a lot. So I think with the ATMS, the horizon, the president and the government keeps emphasizing it, is there is a lot of opportunity, if handled well, that can come through it. But again, from the young people's perspective, we must still be positioned to not only compete and participate in the whole transformation of the country. Because what we usually forget is, now for example, the government has a new scheme, I think the graduate scheme, they want to give money to graduates. So with young people, it's a bit complicated, because okay, now you're going to give the graduates that are graduating this year. I don't even know how feasible that really is. I think it brings us back to, it's just the focus of, okay, we've given this number of people this amount of money to start up something, without actually addressing the underlying factors as to why even those who have access to capital have failed to thrive, or even those that have access or that can start up very beautiful innovation things have failed to actually succeed. So I think from the government perspective, there's a lot that really needs to be to sit through and change in a way or two, to have an enabling environment, because I'm a strong believer that young people in this country are highly innovative, they are creative, they can really do so much, but I think what is missing is the enabling factor and the political will from the government to actually, enable.
Thank you. Let me come to the Honorable Kabyanga. Honorable Ssemujju talked about the ATMs there, but let's specifically talk about agriculture. Agro-industrialization. At Yak, where's the sugar? The fruit factory in Soroti, where's the juice? Why is there emphasis on agro-industrialization and yet we're not seeing impact from it? Is it just politics, or are you really working as government to transform lives of Ugandans?
First of all, let me first tell Ssemujju that I'm always happy. And Timothy, you know that I'm the happiest minister. And you know Ssemujju always wants, probably he always meets me when I'm not happy. You know, when we are talking about agro-industrialization, we shouldn't limit it to Atiak or probably the fruit factory. We are also looking at the smallholder, what I would call the smallholder farmers. These people who Ssemujju doesn't want to listen to, these ones who are getting the PDM money. You are getting me? So that they can produce for these industries. I think one big thing before I come to that PDM has one problem. You know, there are 7 pillars. But unfortunately, we are concentrating on only what? One pillar. Financial services, financial inclusion. But what the professor was talking about, that most of these people in agriculture are illiterate. There is a pillar there which is actually even was supposed to be executed by my ministry. Mindset what? Mindset change. And there is no money that has been allocated to it. We are concentrating on financial inclusion. But actually, what should have happened, the two would have been done concurrently. And if we had done that, it would have solved the problem which professor was coming up with. Because we are not going to say we abandon these illiterate farmers. And even if we say we industrialize, some of them will not even get jobs in in industry, because they are illiterate. So we still need to move with them till we reach that stage. It comes to the fruit factory in Soroti. The biggest problem are the fruits themselves. At first, people went into fruit growing, and there were a lot of fruits, and then the factory was not functioning at its capacity. So I think people lost a lot of produce, and some of them even cut cut mangoes, cut the oranges. 2, we have some other problem in this country. Some of these factories need homogeneity, sort of. If you are going to use pineapples, those pineapples must be of the same species. And probably you even assure they are the same size. Now those are some of the challenges which we normally get. People just see mangoes, but the issue is there's so many mangoes you are seeing cannot even blend, and then it becomes a big problem. But now government is putting in a lot of effort to see that the fruit factory can start operating, and they save those farmers all the losses. The Atiak factory, I went there, I think, last year, at the beginning of last year. I had ideological orientation training in Agago. And one of the projects we visited is Atiak factory. And I found there one big challenge. You know, that place can be hot sometimes. And therefore, for us to produce enough cane, for the plant to start functioning well, we shall need to apply what? Irrigation. And that was one of the biggest problems. But cane is being planted.
So you mean we didn't know that that place is hot?
No, now those are the things I'm coming up with. Cane is being planted. They had put up dams. And
see, if the minister can allow, just a second. This guy of coffee in Ntungamo,
Inspire Coffee.
Inspire Coffee, he said they want to establish a factory, we spend money for him to export processed coffee. I am told people who consume coffee, the smell, you cannot produce coffee in Ntungamo. By the time it reaches Italy, it has lost this.
Even the arguments won't allow us to do
aroma.
that.
So they have said now he wants a runway. So we are going to produce the most expensive coffee in the world. After giving him money, he now wants a runway to begin exporting coffee.
Our agreements with the European Union will not allow us to export processed coffee.
What?
so
So the Honorable Kayanga said, I was looking at sugar. You say the price is very hot. So when did you discover that it is hot?
No, that's what I'm coming. That's where I'm coming. But now they establish big dams to capture water, and so far a lot of planting is ongoing. But they are also trying to see whether they can tap water from the Nile, so that we can plant more canes and to be able to support the plant. There were also issues, obviously, with the UDC. Is it UDC? I think, because the proprietor wanted to buy direct. There were issues of procurement between the proprietor and the government agency which was executing the project, and that one also took a lot of time to resolve, because the proprietor wanted to buy direct, and now the agency wanted to follow procurement and then get supplier and the like. So that one also took a lot of time. But now all those things are being what? Are being sorted. And I think very soon we shall have sugar from Atiak. For Honorable Ssemujju, you know, you always throw camaraderie in everything. The issue of a runway, that one was discarded. Because when he came up with, you know, the proprietor, Tugume, is a young man with a lot of ambition and so many projects at the same time. And the president, that one, he said that runaway is not an issue now. Let us concentrate on processing the what? The coffee. But just as the professor has also said, when you're processing that coffee,
you won't take it to Europe.
You don't need to be as if you're going to compete with the big brothers, because you can't say now I want to kick off Nescafe. Nescafe. Those are brands which are.
Let me ask a question. Sugar, the weather, fruits disappearing, trees being cut.
Chira, banana.
Yes, bananas, then there is coffee. What informed this feasibility study? Because
they were not there.
Wouldn't an industry of sugar be preferred in the eastern part of the country? Wouldn't coffee be preferred in the central region or in the eastern of Mbale, Sironko? What informed these? Because you seem like you didn't envision these challenges and you were shocked by them.
No, what I think what we are trying to do as government is to see how each region should have some project that can really serve it and attract. You know, some of these
so
projects attract a lot of other things like employment in a place, and therefore that's why some of those projects are started in those regions. That's why even industries
the president
are being decentralized.
Has been very negative with the sugar cane growing in Busoga. So it will now develop actually.
I think it's not really very negative about sugar cane. Sugar cane growing.
Go into fishing, go into this. So after sugar cane failing, Busoga now it will.
It's only not. I think Professor Balunya, since he comes from Busoga,
I sit on the Marivan board. So
exactly.
I'll tell you. Yes.
But it's not really very negative. But for him, he thinks some things like sugar cane growing probably. I think it's about his biggest problem is on rice in wetlands. And the sugarcane growing, I think Professor Valunya must be having a lot of information about it. It also has its own cartels, which have been working towards making it unprofitable for smallholder farmers to benefit. And I think that's where his problem is. But
let me widen the conversation. The president has talked about 21 products to be put on the market. He even increased them to be 31, says they're projected to be 50, said we leave the 3 T's and the 3 C's. What informs this agriculture idea that government has, and where is the feasibility to inform it?
Timothy, this is an agriculture country. We can even produce 100 what? products, if we are really very serious. But let me also tell you one thing. Some of these, I think Hon Ssemujju has been in Parliament, and my brother here from Sesbag. Even some of these loans which you see stranded, feasibility, you know, you go and get a loan, and embedded in the loan is a feasibility study. You're getting the problem. And me, that's why, and me, I'm from government. I can't shy away. You're getting me. How do you get a loan? And then imported in the loan, you say you're going to make a what? That's where the problem is. And I think Professor Balun, I know, has been a consultant. Those are the things they are finding in most of those loans which are stuck. Because, and the issue is, what informs you to get the what? That amount of loan. That is the biggest problem, Timothy. And that's where the problem is. And what now we should do is to really re-examine ourselves. And all that, actually, me, I call even that one corruption. We should really re-examine ourselves and say, if we are going to get a loan, let us start with the what? Feasibility study. Okay. So that we know what we are getting a loan. Like Hon Ssemujju was talking about all these expenses, allowances. I think we are now trying to rationalize. Now no more public celebrations. So from there we shall go in.
When do we start with the donation?
We shall
Let me bring in Professor.
I think Professor can give us the real picture of the sugar.
Yes,
because he's very conversant.
There is these ATMs, there are these enablers that have infrastructure. I've heard the Honorable Ssemujju say, if there are 10 roads, 6 are eaten before the 4 are made. But infrastructure is there. There is also enablers of electricity to be there. And we also have a balance of trade deficit that is there. What can we do to correct this?
I think the ATMs is a wonderful idea. Tourism is a low-hanging fruit for Uganda. I mean, we don't have really to do so much in terms of competition. You're not competing with anybody. But for a long time, we've not developed our tourist sites. The source of the Nile is only one longest river in the world. You go and see how it looks like. They will now put a building there. But I think we didn't invest in that as a tourist attraction, because it's amazing that this wonderful source of the Nile is not developed. I mean, you know, the people, they've now put something, and the traders are complaining, but this should have been done 30 years ago. So tourism is a low-hanging fruit. It's something that needs a bit of teaching, and it will work. The other areas in terms of agriculture and the minerals, there is an ideological issue. Government has not resolved whether it is pursuing a policy of private sector-led growth, or it should have government in it. So the projects that government is funding, I think right now they've kind of sorted it out. Go to UDC. Go to UDC. I mean, look at Uganda Clays. They need some little money. And it's one of Uganda's indigenous companies. It is listed. It should be funded. That's what, nobody's funding it. And yet, it continues to produce. But it's because of the lack of resolution at the ideological level. That is identifying where we should put the money. Busoga has 8 sugar factories.
8.
8. Yes. 2 things. Of those 8, there's no government money in it. Other than, I think, possibly the loan that was given to the Marivanis that time, long ago, some $50 million in the 80s. The rest have been established by the private sector. That's fine. Let's take agriculture, let's take sugarcane as belonging both to agriculture and industry. And what is the problem? If you have less than 10 acres of sugarcane, you will never make money in sugar. You can't. Same is true of maize production. So, Hon Ssemujju, when I was saying let's abandon, I didn't say let us abandon agriculture. I'm saying the people who are in agriculture are illiterate or semi-illiterate. They are using production methods which, you know, cannot compete with anybody. Our productivity is so low. The cost of borrowing is, for those who are in the formal sector, is very high, by the way.
Yes.
Because our interest rates are 17%. And usually, interest rates should be inflation. The bank rate, central bank rate, should be a few percentage points above inflation. Inflation in this country has been between 3 and 5% for a long time.
Yeah.
And so bank rate should be about 8%, and the commercial bank rate should be about 10-12%. But minimum is 17%. And what is the problem? We're inefficient. As a country, we're inefficient from the financial perspective. So we are lending money to the private sector at such a high cost. And then you bring in, you distort the markets by giving these other guys money either free or at 10% or 6%. So the day they succeed and get into the open market, they'll be blown away. So agriculture, yes, you need to have people to have slightly larger farms so that they can be able to have higher levels of productivity. I mean, with less than 10 acres of maize, of sugarcane, you won't make the money. So let these people leave agriculture and go to industry, but they can only go if they're educated.
Yeah.
They can only go there if they're educated. And then the other problem is, I've told you here that 70% of Uganda's population who join P1 don't make it to P7. And these are about 20 million people or so today. Now, in terms of business, in terms of entrepreneurship, the entrepreneur is somebody who generates innovations, okay? Innovations create industry. Now, if the entrepreneur is illiterate or semi-literate, cannot use this phone to generate new ideas for business, for better business, what kind of business are they going to have? They're going to sell old clothes and ride on border. Border is very expensive as a means of transport. Very expensive. As a country, we are very inefficient in terms of transportation. So we need to address the ideological issue that where should government participate and what is the criteria, so that we do not fund what is it, attack? I remember, I think when this lady was starting this factory, I knew, I related with her very well. She started, she was, I mean, very ambitious, very hard-working lady. And I think at some stage she realized it was too much. That's when she went to government. And of course, the president, in his usual way, if there's a project that he feels can be supported, he'll support it. But now that is where the ideological issues come in. Now, the Sorot Fruit Factory is also a mixture of ideological issues. You have a Korean government giving equipment, you start a government company to run it, and the private sector is supplying the fruits. There's no way it will work. Absolutely. These two don't, I mean, with due respect, that arrangement, let this go either to the private sector completely or to government. Again, an ideological issue in terms of decision. Government should be very firm on which areas should the government go into support, and how do we select those projects. That is something which the ideologues in NRM should be able to finalize. So agriculture, yes, will grow only if you have bigger farms which have high levels of productivity. And if Luz is going to sell his factory because of electricity, it is telling you about mechanization. You know, today, I mean, the mechanization level has gone so high. The Industrial Revolution in 1760 mechanized agriculture production. Today, we still use a hoe in agriculture. There is no way we shall be competitive.
And a bottle for irrigation.
Yeah. So, so in the minerals, I think here the president has done very well. The biggest factory in this country is in my village in Iganga. I actually say we're the most industrialized village in this country. Tembo steel mills. I mean, they've got 200 acres of land doing that, trying to do, because we're exporting iron ore. We are now processing it in the country. That's very good. It's producing jobs for the people, you know. But there's a bit of need to streamline policy there. I've seen technicians, some of our engineers in that factory, but most times they come from India. So can we identify more minerals so that we do not export raw materials? If we don't export raw materials, then we can have higher quality jobs. But
yeah.
Interesting, you said they're not literate. Yet the most recent report shows literacy has gone up to 84%. But let me read some messages here.
Literacy is just reading sentences.
Remember,
well done.
Let's sort out the literacy thing. Go to the Ministry of Education website. We were here discussing it. It will tell you that the people who make it in, who get to P7 are between 25 to 35% of those who enter P1. This year I was a commencement speaker in one of the universities, and I realized that 70,000 people graduated degrees But if you go back to P1, who entered their 1.76 million?
Wow. Let me read this feedback. Good evening, Timothy. Well done. And to salam to the panelists in the studio. I have nothing much to say, but I want to congratulate Honorable Ssemujju for being very bold. It only takes a person that has such a mind to be able to call out the things that are happening in our country, the transparency and everything. Surely Uganda's parliament and the citizens will miss him. This is Ramadan from Palisa. Okay, thank you, Ramadan. The biggest problem of our country is corruption, quite deep-rooted, and therefore no matter how massive the budget money is, unless the management attitude changes, we shall not expect any different results. This is Alex from Fort Portal. Okay, Timothy, thank you very much. I want to thank the Honorable Ssemujju, but also I want to let him know that the budget on entertainment means buying water for the guests that come. Okay, interesting. When you buy food, you contribute to the people. I am Dr. Clifton, coordinator of PLU, and in the division of Ibanda. Okay, Timothy and the team, thank you very much for what is happening there. People in Teso have information that the factory has already been sold to a private investor. The former minister in the House is saying government is putting resources to make it function. Which information is true? What can the minister be able to clarify on that? This is Julius. Thank you, Julius.
That what?
The factory is already sold.
The factory is already sold. Okay. Edward in Kasese says, I'm afraid I will not sleep tonight. The expenditure priorities of this budget, I have a kind proposal. Government, kindly copy the Asian tiger approach. And for once, be honest. The Honorable Ssemujju and many of the people here have been honest, and we thank them. Okay? Finally, James from Gulu says, Honorable Kabyanga, to remind you that River Unyama runs right through a Chak sugar plant. Why are we building dams there? It's the same river which goes and floods in Elegu town every year. The river runs through the year. Okay, we'll leave the messages at that. So we'll get to parting shots, and I'll start with Julia here, Julius, Honorable Ssemujju, Professor, and finally the Honorable Kabyanga.
Thank you once again to the viewers, to government. Please reconsider paying medical interns. That's really important. And then secondly, I think a lot of effort has to be focused on oversight. Before we scale the very brilliant ideas on paper, we need to test them and then allocate. We do not have the luxury to just waste our resources anyhow, so it is very important that this financial year, hopefully, and all the coming years, government really pays key attention on how it efficiently utilizes the limited resources before it decides on where and how to spend it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Julius, over to you.
Yes, just two things. One is to my fellow citizens, to tell them that tomorrow is the budget speech. It's going to come out. Take time to listen in, take time to identify some opportunities that are there. But for me, most importantly is please look forward to monitor the budget, how it is implemented in your own areas and your own village, so that resources are not wasted. And probably also to the President is that probably we want to hear more tomorrow on really the specific measures that are going to put in place, so that at least we can stop wastage of our resources, especially to deal with issues around corruption. Would love very much to hear that, so that at least we know that every shilling counts. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Ssemujju.
This budget was passed by Parliament I think in mid-May. Made proposals, recommendations to restructure it. We lost that opportunity. There's been a lot of shouting because corruption in Uganda, it's not just the money that they steal, it's money people share, official and eat. I have told you, an MP, you are paid fair. They give you lunch, even if you don't take it, it is in the budget. Special meals, whether you like them or not, they will have been sitting on the committee on budget. We are about 40. Each morning they bring a breakfast, but only 7 of us are present. And sometimes you come when you have taken a breakfast from home. And then you have children in primary school who go hungry every day. you are feeding people who can feed themselves, they're not even interested in your food. And then you spend 300 billion. The trouble with NRM is that the president said he wants people who can sleep as long as they wake up and vote NRM. And now he says, please don't sleep. But that's a campaign he has had for a very long time. I don't know whether we need a machine to switch them on now.
No, he said no more sleep.
But he said I want people who sleep as long as they wake up to vote.
So now, no more sleep.
That's why I said maybe, because that has been their training. So we need a machine to switch them on. Tomorrow's budget already passed. It's just the speech that we are waiting. Government has capacity to revise the budget. And I want to hear that in the speech that we are revising. I have seen a lot of drama at Parliament. Money for donation is going to reduce. Go to the aggregate figure in the budget, not just the money at Parliament. Everybody who is donating, if you say donation must go away, it should go away. If you say entertainment, it should go away. But you don't concentrate publicity around one sector, and then the Kaviangas are still donating. I am just looking for that Museveni who used to put on a Kaunda suit and using plastic plates and buying furniture from Waise and selling vehicles to ministers. Because these ministers, I come from Chazan. Government officials are using public vehicles to go and check on their cows. That can stop. I hope so.
Okay. Professor Valmio.
Yeah, a budget, as I said earlier on, is an expression of the intentions of the people who make it. And to me, government has already done its intentions, and as the Honorable says, possibly there is need to revisit it. But to me, government needs to think, to sort out its ideological issues in terms of ownership of businesses and funding of industries. I think the route of UDC is good. It should be emphasized, but the selection of these organizations should be based really on ideological issues. Two, there is need to fund education. I would rather put all this money into funding education so that you reduce on the literacy level, so that when you are funding business startups, you are funding people who are educated, who can then start a business that can compete. The quality of any, the most important resource in any country are the people. And that, the quality of the people in the country determines its productivity and its prospects for growth. With these 20 million people who have never reached P7, there is no way this country is going to transform. So you need a long-term projection, 10, 15 years, to be able to get people to an illiterate level, which can then go and start businesses that are competitive, knowing very well that most businesses die before they are 1 year old. So there is need to invest money in education, especially in science education, which the Prince has done, but the money is not getting there. And identify those priorities in agriculture, which can then give us, the production that we want. But we must address the infrastructure.
Thank you.
Electricity, especially.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lastly,
to my sister, I think the issue of interns, because it has it's on his mind. Fortunately, I was with the Minister of Health, Dr. Wariumusi, today, and I think they are going to revisit the whole issue. There are discussions which are ongoing, and that's what he told me. I think that's one of the first assignments he's going to do. On Soroti Food Factory, government has not sold the food factory, but there is a management contract with the private person. There is a management contract with the private person, but not an outright what?
Not the sale.
Sale. On Atiak, yes, there is a river which goes through the Atiak sugar plantation.
David Madven has a Lake Victoria, but it still gets.
Yeah, but I don't still remember the size of the farm. It's so many square what? Square miles of land where they are going to plant that the sugar cane, and that river cannot supply enough water to all that. Yeah, they have to pump a lot of water, and so that's why they have even made dams, and they are now thinking about getting water from the River Nile if they are to succeed.
Thinking, they killed Kwame and took.
And the feasibility studies are already in place. And when it comes to ATMs, yes, government is going to invest in ATMs, but the enablers are very, very crucial. Because the cost of doing business here is high because of electricity. Electricity itself. The only cheapest thing in this country is labor. But when it comes to electricity, very, very high. And I think the Professor Barunya, who are in education, let us also start training our people, our children, based on our economy. Otherwise, I think universities should also change the way they are doing things. So we shall need skills, education skills, to serve the ATMs. We shall need electricity. We shall need good roads, because you can't spend 8 hours going to Kasese. By air, it's very expensive, $300 return ticket. So these enablers are very important, and we need also to improve our health care, because it is only a health population that can be very productive. So we need to invest in these enablers so that we can service the ATMs.
Thank you very much. I want to say thank you to the gentleman and lady that the production team that has made today possible. But we'll end today with this quote: "Waste neither time or money, but make use of both." Good morning.